In previous buff showcases, each of our hybrids were carefully selected and built with the specific task of taking on the meta's prior big bads in one of the greatest wars Jurassic World Alive has ever seen. And today, we are celebrating a legacy. With Chinese New Year upon us, we wanted to spotlight a lineage that has quietly shaped some of the most influential hybrids the game has ever seen. A region rich in prehistoric diversity, responsible for an entire ecosystem of creatures that would go on to define multiple metas. From theropods to ceratopsians, China's fossil record has served as the backbone for more hybrids than most players realize. And the tournaments have largely gone unexplored. That's all about to change today. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. So today, while we'll still be dipping our toes into the arena ladder, we'll also be introducing targeted modifications to the creatures featured today. Adjustments designed to give their respective rarities the boost they deserve in competitive play. Update 1.9 reshaped the game, and in the process, ceratopsian archetypes were hit far harder than any other class, and the once durable bruisers became completely wiped overnight, struggling to keep pace with the rapid rise of immunities and new oppressive mechanics. What was framed as a quote-unquote revamp, in Ludia's words, ultimately dismantled the ceratopsian archetype as we know it. Prior to this patch, ceratopsians were the jack-of-all-trades in the dinosaur roster. They had answers to nearly every scenario, some lean into raw power, others relied on utility and survivability to weather the storm. Furthermore, attack was nerfed among all of them. Dig-in became a universal crutch, and nearly every ceratopsian was funneled into the same swap and stunning strike template. As you can imagine, this gutted the archetype. And while we did see powerful ceratopsian hybrids emerge later in the form of apex creatures like Dracolux, Ceramagnus, and Spinotops, none of them truly captured the versatility and personality that once defined the horned menaces. So today, that's exactly what we're here to fix. And if there was ever a ceratopsian lineage capable of restoring that lost identity, power, and utility, it starts here. Ladies and gentlemen, this Chinese New Year we bring forth the newest assets. 5 of them to be specific. Starting off with the dinosaur that started it all, Sinoceratops. Now yes, while it did recently receive a buff, we can make it better. To start, we're replacing Resilient Strike with a move only true veterans will remember. Inspired by Minimal Stunning Strike, we fused its core identity with modern utility. This new ability, Minimal Headbutting Strike, carries a 50% chance to stun and applies vulnerability after the attack connects. All this finesse perfectly encapsulates what ceratopsians were always designed to do. Control the flow of combat through extreme pressure and a little bit of gambling. Moving on to its next ability, Dig-In makes its exit, replaced by Stunning Slowing Vulnerable Impact. Bit of a mouthful there. A move seen on its fellow ceratopsian compatriot, Stegoceratops. A once staple of early meta days, proves to be a worthy enough asset for our Sino buff. The function is simple, a 1.5x hit bundled with a 75% chance to stun and additional debuffs, giving Sinoceratops the tools it needs to lead with a charge. For its third ability, we're keeping its signature instant charge mechanic, and that decision will pay dividends once we move on to its far more ferocious relatives. Looking at its secondary abilities, Swap and Stunning Strike will stay. It's simply too valuable to remove. However, Stunning Obstruction makes its way out for Dig-In on escape. Not because Obstruction was weak, but because Sinoceratops already carries 4 stun abilities. This change also serves as a nod to the direction ceratopsians were originally intended to take following Update 1.9. To round things out, we're finishing the job with its resistances. Vulnerability and swap prevention are pushed from 75% to full immunity. The main reason was that having 75% made no sense, just make them fully immune at that point. Stat-wise, health gets increased to 40-50, and speed receives a substantial buff from 107 to 116, allowing Sinoceratops to once again become a formidable flagship to its team. With that, our new and improved Sino is ready, and we will now be downloading that info and sending it to the labs, where these abilities will serve as the baseline for the following hybrids. So now the question remains, how do we buff the following hybrids? And the answer is quite simple actually. We double down on what they're actually special at. The good news is, 2 of the 4 hybrids specialize in raw damage, while the other 2 are more generalized. So with that in mind, let us bring up one of Jurassic World's oldest legendary hybrids to date, Allosinosaurus. This hybrid is the definition of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and Allosino specifically has always done exceptionally well at raw damage. To begin, we simply replace Fear Strike with Group Fear Strike to allow for a more modernized kit. Moving onward, we run into Group Vitalize and Dispersed Fierce Impact, and rather than removing either, we chose to combine them. The result is Vitalizing Impact, an ability that preserves the speed increase, healing, and cleanse of the former with the raw force of the latter. As we move deeper into the kit, we wanted Allosino to truly hit as hard as possibly could, and for that reason, we introduced a custom ability, Piercing Devour Rampage. Simply put, adding a Devour component to its already devastating damage multiplier allows this hybrid to sustain itself the only way it knows how, through violence. Finally, Instant Charge is upgraded to Instant Charging Impact, giving Allosinosaurus the extra bit of damage without overcomplicating its straightforward playstyle. With its primary abilities now finalized, will this creature have any secondary abilities? Of course! Now, we are aware how monstrous of an attack stat 1800 is, so to avoid being overly dominant, Swap In Headbutt makes its way into the kit as a good middle ground, a toned down Swap In Stunning Strike that keeps Allosino threatening without pushing it into overtly powerful territory. And remember the Stunning Obstruction removed from Sinoceratops earlier? That ability will find a new home here, allowing Allosino to play with a bit of finesse as a trap killer. As for its resistances, every stat it carried previously will now be fully immune to them. No new add-ons, no new answers to the meta, just sharpening the weapons it already had. Its basic stats will also remain the same, however the nuance is a slight, and we mean very slight, increase in its critical damage multiplier, taking it from 125% to 135%. Some might already see where this is going. And with that, Allosinosaurus is fully complete. It might not seem like the fastest, and it might not have the answers to all the problems meant to topple it, but what it does make up for is more than enough firepower that will come in handy later down the line. But we're not quite done yet. As you all know, there is a second, smaller, much more nimble theropod made from the same genetics. Utasinoraptor may not be as bulky, nor as brutally heavy-hitting as its larger companion, but what it lacks in raw mass, it more than makes up for with versatility. And because Utasinoraptor has historically carried far more diversity in its kit, we allowed ourselves to get a little creative here. To start, the Sinoceratops lineage comes full circle. Where Sino wielded minimal headbutting strike, Utasino now gains headbutting strike, retaining every core aspect of the original move, but now layering in a distraction component as well. This directly references Utasinoraptor's legacy as a disruptive, control-oriented hybrid. Next up is an ability that even we'll admit is slightly unhinged, and one that may be up for future adjustment, but given the legendary creatures currently roaming the format, we're comfortable letting this one breathe. Introducing Instant Determined Shield Impact. This move allows Utasino to cleanse bleed and distraction while simultaneously throwing a shield, all wrapped up in a solid damage multiplier. On the opposing side, it unloads a cascade of debuffs, vulnerability, distraction, and critical reduction, among others. In practice, this ability positions Utasino as a direct counter to monsters such as the beastly Becklolith and rampaging Rebirth Rex. Moving on, we arrive at what may be the strongest ability in its kit, Critical Lockdown Rampage. This move pushes Utasino's critical chance to absurd levels, strips the opponent of their ability to heal, and applies a pin to prevent escape. This ability sparked considerable debate within the team. Early iterations featured a cheat death component, but given Utasino's already aggressive turn cycling potential, granting 2 turns of invulnerability proved excessive. Furthermore, it also proved not as useful as once thought. Because this hybrid is able to repeatedly throw out multiple layers of distraction, shields, as well as a stun thrown into the pinch, it was able to hold its own at pretty good rates. In its final form, the philosophy is clear: survivability traded for overwhelming power. Rounding out the primary kit, Instant Charge is upgraded to Instant Quickening Charge, granting both a burst of damage and a valuable speed increase to maintain tempo, while serving as a stark contrast to Allosino's own move of Brute Force. As tradition dictates, we now move into secondary abilities. To honor its ceratopsian roots, Utasinoraptor inherits Swap In Stunning Strike along Dig In on Escape, giving it defensive insurance without compromising its offensive identity. Resistance-wise, this hybrid gains full immunity to distraction, stun, and swap prevention, with a 75% resistance to speed decrease, ensuring it remains difficult to control once it gains momentum. Finally, its base stats receive meaningful reinforcement. Health sees a substantial increase of 1300, while attack is boosted to 1600. Armor and critical damage are nudged upward modestly, reinforcing lethality without tipping the balance too far. And with that, our legendary hybrids are complete. Each one honors its lineage while carving out a unique role in the format. But while they prepare to enter legendary play, there's still unfinished business, because their offspring are next, and that's where things truly begin to escalate. So obviously, the rarities increase from legendary to unique here, but there are a few things we'd like to address, because with a hybrid as straightforward to create as Thoradolosaur, concerns about balance are inevitable. So as we move from legendary into unique rarity, we're fully aware of how accessible some of these hybrids are, and how buffs of this magnitude could potentially affect lower arenas. However, these changes aren't being made in isolation. Every buff in this series follows a consistent power curve, with each creature designed to land within a similar strength bracket. To further reinforce this, we propose an additional safeguard: level caps for lower competitive arenas. Under this system, Lockwood Estate would retain a level cap of 20, while Avery would increase to level 25. This prevents over-leveling from dictating outcomes, protects newer players, and allows higher rarity creatures to express their intended power without warping lower formats. It's a solution that preserves balance, rewards progression, and maintains competitive integrity, and one that we'd love to see explored further by Ludia moving forward. With this in mind, we can now begin on an aviary player's worst nightmare, the thundering emerald theropod, Thoradolosaur. Now, for Thor, we wanted to fully lean into what it already has done best: massive critical dumping. It's a bold direction, but chompers, regardless of their counters, should always be the creatures capable of the most explosive hits in the game. With this redesign, Thor firmly earns its place in what we're now calling the ramp archetype. This archetype revolves around creatures that don't immediately overwhelm you, not entirely anyway, but instead build pressure and typically detonate on turn 2, often ending games outright if left unchecked. We've featured several members of this archetype on the channel before, and now Thor joins the ranks as the hardest hitting member yet. We begin with its basic strike. Fierce Strike is upgraded to Ferocious Cleansing Strike, a move borrowed from its fellow cousin Tyrannometrodon. The goal here is simple: allow Thor to safely amplify its damage when it wants to, while removing debuffs after the hit lands. This still keeps the hybrid threatening when it needs to be, without turning its basic attack into a full-fledged reset button. Things do get crazier as we move down this rampaging totem pole. Building off Allosino's vitalizing impact and Thor's existing group cleansing destroyer, we combine the best of both worlds. This new ability retains the speed increase and healing from Allo, the full cleanse Thor is known for, and most importantly, makes use of the Act Last mechanic. All of this accumulates into what is now Vitalizing Destroyer, an ability designed specifically to pressure Distortus Rex in tournament settings. With D-Rex capable of ramping its speeds to absurd levels via its counterattack, Thor's slight speed increase here creates a narrow but deadly window enough to put the mutant on the back foot, while quietly setting the stage for what comes next. Now, Thoradolosaur has never struggled with damage, but this time we want that damage to mean something. Instead of the usual get 2 hits before you die approach, we introduce Critical Shattering Decimation. Built upon Group Shattering Rampage, this ability's multiplier is up to 2.5x hit while increasing Thor's critical chance by 20%. Once Thor enters its threatened state, that hit escalates into a full 3x multiplier, at the cost of sacrificing 1/3 of its own health. To keep the level of lethality in check, the ability carries a 2-turn delay, forcing players to plan their detonation rather than simply dropping the nuke. And yes, that delay is intentional, because Thor comes equipped with a safety net. Afflicting Charge rounds out the primary kit, acting as a stalling tool rather than something meant for brute force. By breaking shields, bypassing armor, increasing Thor's own armor, applying heavy affliction, and carrying a solid stun chance, this move exists for the reason to buy just enough time for Critical Shattering Decimation to open up. Now, a big part of Thor's identity was its high critical chance, so to fully lock in this secret strength, we're going to throw minor critical counter into the mix. This counter allows Thor to quietly up the stakes every time it's touched, while critical obstruction ensures that pressure never fully lets up either. Resistance-wise, Thor becomes immune to bleed, decel, stun, and vulnerability. Its base stats receive modest buffs, finally regaining a touch of armor lost from its Allosaur parent, but the real story lies in its critical stats. Critical chance returns to 40%, while critical damage skyrockets to an absurdly scary 150% multiplier. And with that, the thundering green Goliath is complete, ready for complete chaos, and whatever it hits, it will destroy. Now, while the theropod before it was very much a shoot first, ask questions later kind of build, Utarinex represents the opposite methodology entirely. The goal here is to deliver a hybrid that can accentuate its synergy where it's needed most, and with Baryotor looming just around the corner of release, now felt like the perfect time to deploy the first hybrid deliberately engineered to contest the Blind Bruiser in a true head-to-head confrontation. And this opportunity is not something we were going to turn a blind eye to. We'll start simple. Utarinex earns back its deceleration on its basic attack, something it once had. The move in question we're giving it is Group Decelerating Cleanse. Nothing flashy, but incredibly effective, and clears the board before the real work can begin. Now, if you'll recall, Utasinoraptor introduced a guaranteed critical hit into its kit, and this is where the hybrid Gestalt doubles down further. By layering precision alongside a 50% affliction, Utarinex is now capable of landing a deceptively simple opening hit, one that sticks, and one that most definitely is going to hurt. Moving deeper into the kit, Utarinex now gains Instant Charge and Run, a fusion of its signature Instant Charge and Rampage and Run abilities respectively. This gives the Bruiser an emergency exit to call upon when situations turn dire, while a small distraction package ensures it doesn't leave without consequence. And now we arrive at the bread and butter of the toolkit. Using Utasinoraptor's halting impact as a baseline, we needed a way to ensure Baryotor could never freely activate all revealing echolocation. But we also didn't want this ability to exist solely as a hard crutch. So to make this ability the best anti-meta counter, we introduced the absolute MVP of our entire buff lineup, Act Last. By incorporating Act Last and increasing both the stun and affliction chances from 50 to 75%, this ability becomes the true shutdown tool, capable of halting even the most aggressive hybrids dead in their tracks. Now, while Rinix is chiefly designed for head-to-head combat, we still wanted its swap-in presence to matter. Borrowing inspiration from the hybrid made from it, Draco Lux, Rinix receives swap-in Goring Charge, granting a 75% stun chance, moderate damage over time, and a 50% vulnerability application, a fantastic use to fall back on in any synergistic lineup. On top of that, Rinix also gains an on-escape tool, Revitalizing Obstruction. It's a bold inclusion, arguably too bold, but in a meta where swaps are exploited mercilessly, this hybrid couldn't afford to let them go unpunished. Resistance-wise, Utarinex becomes immune only to the effects it already resisted heavily, with a minor 25% addition in the form of Affliction to smooth out interactions. Its health is restored to 4200, and while we could have slowed its speed to guarantee Act Last against Baryotor, we chose the gamble instead. Because on this channel, after all, risk is our middle name. A slight increase in armor and critical damage finally round out the Pachycephalus sword, and with that, Utarinex is finally ready to charge into battle. Altogether, these 5 creatures share enough DNA, both literal and mechanical, to truly function as a family. Each hybrid brings a defining strength to the table, but when deployed together in tournament play, they cover one another's weaknesses and thrive as a unit. Against the ever-growing list of modern threats, these dinosaurs would serve as ideal companions to call upon, and we'd like to believe we've done enough justice to both their lineage and to China's name by delivering such formidable combatants. And as if buffs designed to challenge a corrupted tournament scene weren't enough, what's more dangerous than denying the meta? Hybrids built to deny the inevitable.